Deontay Wilder retains his WBC heavyweight world title with a 5th round TKO over challenger Gerald Washington. Now, going into this fight, I was actually quite interested to see how this one would go, because I knew that Washington was a technically minded heavyweight and that he is pretty technically sound. Wilder has been often criticized for being unsound technically, for throwing wild punches here and there, for having, some people say, poor balance, and for just being ungainly and very unorthodox a lot of the time. These are the things that Wilder gets criticized for. So with Washington, a guy who doesn't throw wild shots, a guy who is cerebral as a heavyweight, he likes to box and do things correctly from a technical point of view, I felt like he had the opportunity there to possibly exploit some of Wilder's mistakes more so than some of the shorter guys that Wilder has faced, the guys who just struggle getting close to Wilder because he's so much taller than them. Well, with Washington, he was in with a guy who was basically the same height and reach as himself, but someone who was better technically. Let's be real. He was better technically than Deontay Wilder. So I was interested in the fight for those reasons. And the way the fight played out didn't surprise me. It may have surprised a lot of you guys out there, or some of you guys, but it certainly didn't surprise me. I'm sure it didn't surprise Richard Dwyer, because he also was interested to see how the fight would play out, given the fact that Washington is, pretty good technically, at least better than Wilder technically, not as wild, and he's more patient than Deontay Wilder. So the way I had the fight was I had Washington, I think, winning every round up until the 5th. Certainly at least three of the first 4 rounds. I had Washington winning. I thought he was outboxing Deontay Wilder. And Wilder, whenever he's in a situation like this, and he's been in a situation similar to this before, when he's in there with a guy who's as tall as he is, who is able to exploit the technical mistakes that he makes, Wilder tends to, I don't want to say he doesn't completely shut down, but his volume goes down dramatically when he's in there with a tall guy who's outboxing him. Because he knows himself that he makes a lot of mistakes and he wants to minimize the amount of mistakes he makes. The more punches he throws, the more opportunities he's going to give his opponent to capitalize on the mistakes he makes, on the technical flaws. So when he's in a position like that against a tall guy like Washington, his punch output goes way down and he starts waiting for the big shot, because he doesn't want to get countered and have his mistakes exploited. And the other time that he did this that I remember was against a tall heavyweight called Calvin Price. That was earlier on in Deontay Wilder's career. And in that Calvin Price fight, I think it only went 3 rounds. And it was similar to the Washington fight where Wilder was throwing virtually nothing. And he was just looking for a big one shot. And he had his hands high a lot of the time to block the jabs and the straight shots. And he really wasn't doing much in the Price fight up until he landed a series of big right hands, which deposited Price on the canvas. And it was similar here against Gerald Washington. He was just biding his time, and eventually the big shot came. Now, the big right hand is Deontay Wilder's get out of jail free card. And some would say he may have got out of jail here with Gerald Washington, but those right hands are not landing by accident. Wilder is a prolific puncher. Not just a big puncher, a prolific puncher. He knows how to eventually land his big shot on your chin. He knows how to do it. He did it in the Artur Szpilka fight, for example. Some people felt he was behind in the Szpilka fight, but somehow he managed to pull that right hand out of nowhere. It's a skill that he has for landing his right hand. You may not rate a lot of Deontay Wilder's game, but he's prolific when it comes to landing that right hand. And he landed it here against Washington. Washington went down. He didn't seem, it's sometimes difficult to gauge how hurt a fighter is, but he didn't seem overly hurt to me. But he got back up. Deontay Wilder started raining in the shots. And the referee stepped in and stopped it. Now, when I first saw it, I thought that was a premature stoppage. Very premature. I was disappointed how quickly the referee jumped in. I thought it was actually a hometown type of stoppage. But apparently after the fight, Gerald Washington had no complaints about it. It kind of reminded me of when Austin Trout fought Canelo Alvarez, and I thought the scores were way off in that fight. But Austin Trout, when interviewed afterwards, said, no excuses, no complaints. I was like, what? You just got jobbed on the cards. I'm not saying it was a robbery in terms of it was inconceivable that Canelo beat Trout. Not at all. I just think the cards were way too wide. So, for me, that was shocking to see that in the Canelo-Trout fight. And the fact that Trout didn't complain about it was a head-scratcher to me. And also here, with Washington, Deontay Wilder, I thought it was a very premature stoppage. And it's a head-scratcher to me that Washington didn't complain about it. I didn't like the stoppage at all. Washington was boxing well. He was winning the fight. It was his moment, his opportunity for the heavyweight title. He was doing a lot of good things in there. And it all got taken from him with one right hand from Deontay Wilder, basically. The follow-ups were not particularly effective, to be honest. When Gerald Washington got up, it was just pressure from Wilder, but there wasn't really anything clean landed, which makes the stoppage even more disappointing. Now, when it comes to Wilder, just like his name would seem to imply, he does get wild, particularly when he's finishing a fighter. Some people act as though all Deontay Wilder does when he gets in the ring is windmill. He doesn't do anything else. He doesn't throw any straight punches at all. He just gets in and starts windmilling. Total nonsense. Deontay Wilder doesn't do that. Deontay Wilder gets wild when he has a guy hurt. That is a common thing with Deontay Wilder. But up until he gets a guy hurt and gets excited, his punches are usually pretty straight. His punches are thrown with pretty decent technique up until, like I say, he gets a guy hurt, then he gets excited and he does start windmilling. And people have said, how can this guy be a champion? He's windmilling and this, that and the other. Well, windmilling or not windmilling, he's winning. And he's winning against guys who are not windmilling. So what does that say? Just because he does get wild when he hurts a guy, it doesn't take away from what he did before that. He's in there with guys who, a lot of them are technically better than he is, but he's still able to beat them. So people seem to be missing the point here and missing the obvious, that whatever he's doing, whether it's ugly or not, it's effective because he's winning. Yeah, Gerald Washington was technically better than Wilder. Why didn't Gerald Washington win? He got caught with a big shot and he went down. Wilder knows how to land his big shot. And it's happened before. He's been in there with technically better guys, but yet he still manages to land his shot. It is a skill to be able to do that. So it is what it is. As I've said many times, I do not see this heavyweight era being dominated by any one particular fighter. I see it being a wild era with a lot of upsets. I expect all these guys to lose. I expect Wilder to lose. I expect Joshua to lose. I expect Parker to lose. I expect Tyson Fury, if he comes back, to lose. I expect all of them to lose. So any idea that I'm saying that Wilder's going to be the top dog in the division, I've never once said that. I've always said that I think, he's going to take losses just like the rest of them. It's how they bounce back from losses, which will determine how they're viewed historically in the long run. Lennox Lewis, one of the greatest heavyweights ever, got knocked out in 2 rounds by Oliver McCall. Maybe Wilder will get knocked out like that. Maybe he'll, quote unquote, get exposed by somebody. Many people, when Lewis got knocked out by McCall, wrote Lewis off as a joke, a paper champion, a hype job. Many people at the time wrote him off as that. But he came back from that and proved that he wasn't a hype job, that he was the real deal. So people are far too premature. Wilder hasn't even lost yet and people are calling him, garbage and rubbish, but he keeps winning. In the meantime, while people are calling him rubbish, he keeps winning. The proof is in the pudding, aka the results. And Wilder keeps getting the results. Now, his next fight, I'm going to make a separate video about. I'm very disappointed actually in the WBC when it comes to Wilder's next fight. As I said, I'll cover that in a separate vid. But as performances go, it was a flawed performance by Deontay Wilder, but his skill and proficiency in landing his right hand surfaced once again. One of the things, though, about Deontay is, as I mentioned earlier in the video, when he's getting outboxed, his volume goes way down, and he doesn't try to box his way out of being outboxed. He doesn't even try to force the issue and fight his way out of being outboxed. He just goes into a shell and waits for the big right hand opportunity. He waits almost for his opponent to get overconfident. That's what happened to Artur Szpilka. Szpilka got overconfident, lunged in, and gave Wilder the opportunity to land a big right hand and knocked him out cold. So that is definitely something for future opponents to, use against Wilder. The fact that his volume goes way down when you start outboxing him. If you're tall enough to do it, even with Szpilka, his volume was down. So if you're able to outbox him, just don't get too confident. Don't make too many mistakes. Keep it simple. Don't get too close to him. Stay on your job, and somebody should be able to beat Wilder on points. If they don't want to take any risk, because the moment you start going for the KO, Wilder's going to start slinging back, and he punches very hard. So it is what it is. But Wilder's definitely there for a good boxer to outbox him. Yeah, definitely. Particularly, I think a taller guy could get to him. So those are my thoughts on Deontay Wilder's performance against Gerald Washington. A flawed performance, but as I say, it was really a microcosm of what Deontay Wilder's all about as a fighter. Flawed, but very talented right-hand puncher. And yeah, it is what it is. Let me know how you felt in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.